Well, last but not least, Daddy's going to read you all a little story for bedtime, otherwise known as a video analysis of Mr. Grumpy's outing. So there's my textbook, Mr. Grumpy's outing. I'm going to read it to you and hopefully pick out some key phrases. So, this is Mr. Grumpy. Note the shortness of the statement, very declarative, accompanied by a picture, so appealing to that multi-sensory way of learning. Children will be in that sensory motor stage of learning, 0 to 24 months. Mr. Grumpy owned a boat and his house was by a river. So very definite, very concrete, talking about the here and now, and then again, very clear pictures to emphasise the concreteness of our story. One day, Mr. Grumpy went out in his boat. "May we come with you?" said the children. "Yes," said Mr. Grumpy, "if you don't squabble." So again, pictures, note the use of contractions, the past tense. So this is telling us that we're looking at a story that's going to appeal probably to those 24, 36 months and older, or you could read it to children of any age. "Can I come along, Mr. Grumpy?" said the rabbit. "Yes, but don't hop about." Pictures, note the use of the contraction and the negative, don't. "I'd like a ride," said the cat. "Very well," said Mr. Grumpy, "but you're not to chase the rabbit." Pictures again, note the use of negatives, commands and a bit of social language, very well. "Will you take me with you?" said the dog. "Yes," said Mr. Grumpy, "but don't tease the cat." So we're noting there the concrete nouns, and the fact we're using hyponyms, we're overextending, we're not talking about poodle or Alsatian, or tomcat or marmalade cat, it's dog and cat. "May I come please, Mr. Grumpy?" said the pig. "Very well, but don't muck about." Again, note a bit of social language, very well. The use of the auxiliary, may. Some social language, please, and a negative command, don't. And of course note that each page is repeating the same structure from the previous page, whereby an animal asks a question and Mr. Grumpy kind of approves. "Have you a place for me?" said the sheep. "Yes, but don't keep bleating." Similar pattern to before. So we're patterning, and by interacting with a child we're using those patterns to help build that sense of language. "Can we come too?" said the chickens. "Yes, but don't flap," said Mr. Grumpy. So now if you notice, each animal is being attributed a feature that we stereotypically attribute to that animal, like sheep bleats and chickens flap. "Can you make room for me?" said the calf. "Yes, if you don't trample about." "May I join you, Mr. Grumpy?" said the goat. "Very well, but don't kick." So I'm building on those earlier patterns. For a little while they all went along happily, but then the goat kicked, the calf trampled, the chickens flapped, the sheep bleated, the pig mucked about, the dog teased the cat chased the rabbit hopped, the children squabbled, the boat tipped. So there you have a long list of the actions the animals engaged in, all in the perfect tense, so repeating that pattern, developing tense and looking at time. "And into the water they fell." So a really big illustration for the climax of the book. "Then Mr. Grumpy and the goat and the calf and the chickens and the sheep and the pig and the dog and the cat and the rabbit and the children all swam to the bank and climbed out to dry in the hot sun. 'We'll walk home across the fields,' said Mr. Grumpy. 'It's time for tea.'" So a long list appending all the creatures, the concrete animals and Mr. Grumpy are in the boat. And the story finishes with this picture to emphasise or to illustrate the fact that the story finishes with everybody coming together for tea. A typical childhood action. So if you were the caregiver, you would then say, "Goodbye," said Mr. Grumpy. "Come for a ride another day." So it finishes very positively and emphasises that the action, the interaction with the child is a very positive one, repeating patterns, working in the concrete and giving pictures to help develop language through the sensory motor phase. Hope that helps.